what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about getting in control of our leads, because we know that in lead generation, you can be out of control of your leads and you just get what's coming at you, or you can be in control of your leads. So the number one indicating factor of a growing business is how systematic and purposeful they are in their lead generation. So that's our whole goal today, is how purposeful can we be in our lead generation and having systems around it. Now, hear me when I say this. When we're talking about systems and lead generation, I am not a systems person. So I'm not asking you to wake up and change your DNA and all of a sudden magically be a systems-oriented person. What we're talking about is consistency of standards so that your consumers know what to expect from you. So we've heard people say that, you know, you have to do what others aren't willing to do. And in this moment in history for the real estate industry, when people are talking about who's going to be successful and who may struggle with some changes that are happening in the industry, a whole industry is not going to go away. This is something that we will adapt to, and things will become normal again. And there's so many different places in the country that these changes that are happening have been taking place and already been required for years and years. So I came from Texas, and all this stuff is all normal. So what we want to talk about is, how do we continue to get more leads so that we can be in control of our business and in control of our growth? Because during a shifting market, those who hold market share and grow market share are the ones that will continue to grow and be the future top producers of the industry. So I want to define something. When people say, do something, do the things that others aren't willing to do, what exactly does that mean? There's kind of two definitions to this. Number one, it's going the extra mile and making the extra effort. It's people wrap things, but who puts a bow on it? So in real estate, we can do the transaction, who puts the bow on it? But I want to be specific around that, because what in the world does a bow on it mean in real estate? Who follows up? Who lets people know what they did without just doing it? Number two is the discipline of sticking with the consistency and the mundane. That is so hard for entrepreneurs, because we're on to the next thing and on to the next thing and moving and on to the next thing constantly. So sticking with the mundane and the consistency, because inconsistency is where success is found. So we're going to start with a little bit of creativity at the very beginning. And we are going to pretend, so I've taught this class before, and I brought a apron. So we're going to pretend that I have an apron on, and we're going to go into the kitchen for a second, because I want you to imagine this. So models in a business, so models for lead generation, is a lot like a recipe. So when we're going to go with baking, not cooking, because in cooking, you can do a little bit of everything. And in baking, you really have to stick to the recipe. So let's say you're cooking a new meal. And if you're like me, I don't like to look at recipes. I just say, nah, a little of this, a little of that. And sometimes it comes out horrific. Sometimes it comes out great. If you make a bad meal, what is the two things that you can add to a bad meal that will make any meal taste better? Can anyone guess?
Beef.
What'd you say?
Sugar.
Butter. Yes. Add enough butter and salt to anything and it tastes great. But let's think about this. If you add, let's say all your recipes, you're trying to cover up with enough butter and salt to it, what does that do in the long term? Does it help your arteries? Does it help your body? Or does it make you unhealthy? It kind of makes you unhealthy. So you can't keep covering up things in the short term. You can have things that aren't models or aren't recipes where you can guess, and you'll sometimes get it right and you'll sometimes get it wrong. Now, when you get it wrong and you make a really bad meal, what do? You throw it in the trash can, and you typically end up going out and you order something and you bring it back home, or you go eat somewhere else. So it's a waste of money. It's the same thing in business. If you don't have a solid model in place and it doesn't work, you end up spending more money than if you followed a model, which we're going to define a model here in a second. Now, if we know we can't put enough butter and salt on everything just to cover it up, then what do we do in the long term? We follow a recipe that has high ratings or high reviews, and people have tried it. It's worked for a lot of people. People who are poor cooks can usually follow a recipe as long as they can read, and they can still figure it out better than if they just guess the whole way. That's what models are to us in real estate for the lead generation side. So I want you to get hooked on to the idea of a model is a benefit for you. There's a notion out there that I feel is inaccurate, talking about models can be rudimentary. It could be something that is for a new agent or a new business, and that's not true. Anytime you talk to top producers, the thing you hear from them is they have standards. They do the same thing over and over again. So the definition of a model is following a long-term strategy that's proven to be profitable, repeatable, and growable. It's just those things. So in the most basic form, is it something that somebody else has done before and you know it made them money and you know it was successful for them? So that's when they say you don't want to recreate the wheel, you want to do what other people have done. Problem is when you talk to other realtors in the industry, they typically don't have their P&L statement right in front of them for you to be able to see how profitable they are. So you want to follow the published models. People can consult based off of opinion, or they can consult based off of models. So anytime that you are in a coaching or consulting or mentoring relationship, you want to know, where did you get the information from? Is it something that they're just making up and it sounds good? Or is it something that's been proven to work multiple times over and over and over again when you are a $5 million producer, or if you're a $50 million producer, or if you're a $500 million producer? So those models are extremely important. So there's 4 models that we base our entire company off of. And it's been proven because most of you guys have read or heard of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book or the Red Book. The great part about it is it's not something that's pulled out of thin air. If you've read it, then you know that it's a collection of case studies of people who were doing the business, are doing the business. A lot of them are still doing the business to this day. So the 4 models that we have is the economic model, the lead generation model, the budget model, and the organizational model. So I want to break those down on what those models are real quick and what they speak towards. The economic model is the business plan for your year with your conversion ratios. If you want to know if your lead generation is successful or unsuccessful, the first thing that you want to do is you want to calculate your conversion ratios. You need to know, am I within range? I call it a range because there's different types of conversion ratios, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So you need to hold your conversion ratios accountable. I was talking with an agent yesterday, and they said that they received a phone call from another agent who said, I'm nervous. I haven't had a closing in a while. They had multiple closings coming up, and this is a great agent. And they were just nervous. And the agent that they called told them, well, how many people have you talked to today? And what's your conversion ratio for how many people you have to talk to for your specific type of lead generation for you to have the closings that you need? You must know your conversion ratio. Top agents know their conversion ratio. Number 2 is the lead generation model. So lead generation and your conversion for the leads for your business. So it's your type of lead generation. So we're going to go into each one of these. I just want you to understand what the 4 different models are and what they speak towards. Budget model is for your P&L statement and protecting your profitability. Remember that money is good for the good that it can do. If you bring enough value to the world, you cannot keep the money away. So our one goal is to bring enough value to the world that you can't keep the money away. And use that money for the good things. Look at our mission statement of what we stand for. And that's what we're using our money for. The legacies worth leaving, the lives worth living, the experiences worth having, the businesses worth, the experiences worth giving and the businesses worth having. All of that is so important. So that's why we talk about money, because you can impact and give and feed and do so much with it. And the last one is the organizational model, because everybody has the same 24 hours in the day. Nobody was blessed with 48 hours in a day. Everybody has the same 24. And at some point, you may look up and you may say, this is more than what I have the capacity for. And you need to hire people. But to hire people, you need to know what order, how do I keep it profitable? How do I train? How do I attract? How do I hold them accountable? All of that is about the organizational model. So here's what we're going to do. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen. So we tried the first time and it didn't quite work. So we're going to try again on this one. Let's see, share. Let's see. Documents, drive, advance. Great. Okay, there we go. Via AirPlay. Let's see if this pops up. Zoom did their update this morning, and of course things changed along the way. Let's see. Okay, this may not work. So here's what we're going to do. Bobby, I'm going to email you my notes. Do you have a whiteboard in the room by chance?
Yeah, we got a board here.
Okay, great. I'm going to email you my notes. So if you could kind of draw along, there's 5 different ways of doing this, and we're going to go to the last resort on it.
Draw, you draw? Bob draw. Bob draw.
Come on. No, my writing's bad.
Let's see.
What are you drawing the clipboard then? X's and O?
Yep. That's all you need.
What? The X's and O's, yeah.
I even tested this morning to make sure that it was all going to work.
It's all right.
You got to love technology. Okay, Bobby, I just emailed you my notes, and I'm going to try one more time. Hey, we got it this way. Can you guys see my screen?
We can see you.
Okay.
Let me see. Hang on, I might better click over here.
Don't see the red blazer.
Yeah, we got it. We got it. We got it.
Yay!
Oh, she got out of it.
Awesome. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we
Okay,
got it.
so I want to show you guys a couple of different things. So when we're looking at your business and the control of your leads come from 3 different places. So there's buckets of leads and sources of leads. So we're going to start with this one right here. So we're going to do an exercise where you guys are going to draw this out, and we're going to do something with it. So you might as well start drawing it now. So you have 3 different places that leads, that you can have sources from leads. So there's the lead generation, the transaction, and the follow-up inside of your business. Now, I'm going to assume that you guys are a killer at the transaction part. And if you're not killer, I'm going to assume that you've hired a transaction coordinator that gives a killer experience to people. When we think about systems inside of a business, we think that this portion is the most systemized portion. So everybody, we're going to say, we're great at this part. Or you have partnered with somebody who is great at this. And this is typically an 8 to 10 week period. That is such a short lifeline of whenever you are in contact with your lead sources. So what we're going to focus on today is this lead generation side and this follow-up side. So consumer reports show that 89% of consumers have said that they would use their agent again that they used during the transaction, but only 11% of people did within the past 12 months. Now, we've heard statistics like this for as long as I've been in real estate. So at least the last 10 years, I've heard very similar numbers to this. What has changed over the last 3 to 5 years is it used to be everybody would know anywhere from 3 to 5 realtors off the top of their head. Now reports are showing that people know about 13.6 realtors in their life. And so our job is to differentiate ourselves from those 13 other realtors that they know. So our value proposition is communicated during this lead generation phase. So I'm going to put VP there for value proposition. Everybody at any given time is in one of these different buckets. Because if you think about real estate, Jason Abrams taught this years ago. Let's say somebody purchases a house here. It would be really awkward if they then purchased a house the very next day unless they're an investor. Typically speaking, that doesn't happen. So immediately after the transaction, we start thinking that people follow up. Well, what's the follow-up stage? Is it a day after, a week after, a month after, 6 months after? Granted, that's open-ended. So we do know that that's open-ended, but we know that this person becoming a lead again to buy another house immediately goes to the bottom here. Every single day is another notch getting closer to whenever they purchase that next house. And we don't know when that is. So everybody is a lead. They go from this follow-up stage to immediately into the lead generation stage, into the transact stage, back into the follow-up stage, back into the lead generation stage. Your database is constantly in one of these buckets. If you want to put the follow-up stage as a year, that's great. If you want to put it as a week, that's also great. But they are actively in one of these stages at any given point. So let's talk about systems real quick and what you do in each one of these stages to be in control of your leads. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So there's a graph that's used in real estate that looks like this. And we've got systems across the bottom. And then we have talent across the top. Okay. Oh, I clicked the button for it to go away. Okay. So we've got talent across the side. Now, so you guys are going to speak up for this part. Where do you think on this graph up and down the NBA is? Do you think they're higher systems or do you think they're higher in talent? What do you think? What'd you say?
Systems.
Systems. Okay, awesome. Or no. So systems. So let me ask you this. Does it matter if LeBron James is on your team? If LeBron James is on your team is probably going to have a higher likelihood chance of winning. That's what the whole Olympics is for. It's the best of the best of the best of the best on a team together. So they're high. Now they have plays that they run, but they are higher talent oriented. So the NBA is listed up here. What about McDonald's? Are they more talent or are they more systems? Systems, yeah. So McDonald's.
Big Mac is fire.
So McDonald's is a multi-billion-dollar company that's built on the backs of 15-year-olds. That's what systems can do. Now in real estate, I want you to take a second. Where do you think your business falls on here? Do you think that our talent impacts our business, or do you think that we're all systems oriented?
It's both.
It's a little bit of both. Typically, when you ask agents to rate themselves on here somewhere, they typically rate themselves right about here. The goal is how do we move ourselves down a little bit more to be in the middle section? So I want to define systems for you because remember, models is having long-term strategy that is a proven map to have a profitable, repeatable, and growable business. Well, systems is the repeatable expectations of actions or steps. So when people talk about leverage, they talk about systems and models, tools, technology, or people. Those are the main types of leverage that people use. So systems and models are put together because they're both long-term strategy. The model is just, has somebody done it before and have they made money with it before and were they able to grow? And the system is what is the repeatable expectation? So you know you're not systemized if you had varied results and you have a feeling of a need to be everywhere all the time, which means it's pulling your talent back into it. So how do you know if there's systems in place to where every single one of your clients is getting the exact same system? Okay. So I want to give an example of this. So Ben Kinney has the Ben Kinney listing presentation. If you onboard onto his team, which I would highly recommend that you go listen to his MREA podcast interview. If you onboard onto his team, every new agent is required to learn, memorize, internalize, and not customize the Ben Kinney listing appointment, the Ben Kinney buyer consultation appointment, the Ben Kinney systems, the Ben Kinney, etc. If you want Ben Kinney's conversion ratio, you are expected to know the systems of his team. That is the models of his team. If you want the conversion ratio, you have to do the exact same thing. It is the system that every single listing receives the same experience. Now, there's another example, Jeff Glover, which I would also highly recommend to go listen to his MREA podcast. He has his I can't remember how many steps it is. I think it's like a 7-step listing process. And they're all step by step. Every single person gets the same experience. So when people refer the experience, then they're really referring the feeling that they receive or the service that they receive. So traditionally, agents believe that the main systems are in the transaction phase. And that's where they give incredible service. And it's kind of a basic value proposition. Everybody expects that their transaction is going to go smoothly. They're not hiring and signing a listing agreement to say, hey, I think this might go okay. Instead, they're saying, I think this is the right person to take care of me. You have to differentiate yourself on the front end of it. And that's, remember, only the 8 to 10 week portion of the relationship. So if you have inconsistent business practices and lead generation, then it leads to inconsistent business results. So if you look at your business throughout the year, typically chunk it up into quarters. Are your quarters consistent, or are they widely varying? Is every single month varying? So what I want you to do is I want you to do a quick exercise. So I want you to go back to this little image that we drew up here on the lead generation, transaction, and follow-up. And I just want you to quickly rate your systems in each portion. And I want you to write out if you have a system. So just take a second to do that. What that looks like is I would rate my lead generation. I know that I have a 36 touch. I know I have a 12 direct. I know I have a client experience. I know that I have a client event that I do twice a year. So how would you rate these on a scale of 1 to 10? And I just want you to see what that number is. So take a second to do that. Okay, so I want you to think through, we're going to come back to this in a little bit, but we're going to talk about the lead generation side. So right under where you were drawing, I want you to draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just like this. Okay. And I want you to list what are your top 5 lead sources in there. So take a second to list what are your, this doesn't have to be exact, but I would just list what are your top, most agents have 3 to 5 lead sources. So take a second to list those. That can look like your sphere, referrals, repeat business, open house, social media, vendors, events, golden letters, door knocking, anything. Okay, so once you have your top 5 lead sources, I want you to take a second to look at them. When we are in the top 100 mastermind with Gary Keller and we're talking about the top 5 lead sources, typically speaking, almost every single time you have, it's the 80-20 principle. 80% of your leads come from 20% of your lead generation efforts. So that means that you have your top 2 sources and then your other 3 sources. In the top 2 sources, you will always see in a highly profitable business database. Somewhere in there. Now, of course, database can be sectioned out into repeat and referrals and database and social media. If you have, if you just do social media towards your database, that can all go in there, but you always see database because it is the highest conversion ratio for the cost per lead and the best conversion ratio for a business. So if you have your top 5, typically, let's say that we have database and referrals because referrals came from outside your database. And then let's say, I'm just going to use as an example that we're going to have open houses, we're going to have events, and we're going to have golden letter. So actually, you know what we're going to do is we're going to actually switch this. We're going to switch this to something more expensive. We're going to call this Zillow. Now, when you're looking at if you're in control of your leads, then database and referrals, you know, we're going to come back to the conversion ratios that we talked about at the very beginning with the lead generation model. Based on your conversion ratios, you know if you put X amount of touches out to your database that you will receive a certain amount of leads that have an output for it. So you are in control of it. So you have control here. Open houses, you know you're in control of that because depending on how many houses that you hold open or your lead generation strategy you do around it, do you just show up for the open house? Do you market before? Do you call the neighbors before? Do you door knock with the neighbors before to let them know? Do you have a neighborhood only sneak peek? Do you have, I mean, how well are you lead generating beforehand? But you have control around this. There was a great MREA podcast from an agent that just talked about how they would do collections of open houses to where they'll put together a list of all the open houses of their listings, and they'll do 6 or 7 of them every single weekend. And people will go to each open house as a collection and go see the tour, and they have agents that are holding open each one of them. So there's so many different ways that you could do this. Events, you can be in control of that. Now, Zillow, let's say that Zillow, and here's the thing with paid lead sources. So many people make it seem like they're the worst thing on the face of the planet, and that's not necessarily true. Now, it's scary if they're in your top 2 lead sources because they are in control and you are out of control. Because what can happen with Zillow is you can keep making payments and all of a sudden you had 100% of a zip code, but now there's enough leads that they opened it up that there's a possibility to buy 200% and you still own your 100%, but there's 200% potential. Or they just decide that they're going to increase the leads. When I taught this class last time, there was an agent who said they started paying $2,400 a month for Zillow leads. And then they raised it to $5,000 a month and then $8,000. And now they're up to paying $16,000 a month in Zillow leads. Because it's 80% of their business, they said it's like a drug to where you keep having to pay for it. So this is why we want to be in control of our leads, because otherwise somebody else is in control and they can change the price, the terms, or the conditions on us. And that's not who we are as realtors when we own our business. So our one goal is if you have a lead source that's out of control, that's in your top 2 to 3 leads, your one goal is to replace it with something that you can control the leads. So, and then you want to pay attention to where are they in the funnel. So if we're looking at a funnel of leads and we're going to say this is the closing here, there's different types of lead sources with different types of conversion ratios. So let's say we've got Facebook leads here, we've got Zillow here, or Realtor.com, Opcity, any one of those. And then let's say we've got database. Facebook leads are anywhere from a 1% to a 5% conversion ratio. Zillow can be anywhere from, now depending on the zip code, depending on the amount of leads, this varies all over the place. we see anywhere from a 7% conversion ratio all the way to about a 20 to 25% conversion ratio here. And then on database, we know that it's a 20-to-2 conversion ratio. Now, I want to say a quick note on this one, because if you read the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, it says a 12-to-2 conversion ratio. What everybody doesn't know is that Keller Williams International redoes the research on the MREA every 2 years, and they allow us to have the information. It's usually uploaded inside of Command with the updated information. So you'll notice the P&L statement numbers aren't the same. The organizational model is not the same. The lead generation model is not the same. The budget model is not the same. They all have changed. Every couple of years, they then go and release the information on kellerinc.com, but that's a public source, and we get more information than the public agents do. So it's usually updated inside of Command. So while originally the numbers and the conversion ratio is a 12-to-2 conversion, it's now a 20-to-2 conversion. Because when MREA first came out, we weren't doing Facebook leads. We weren't doing Instagram leads. We weren't doing these very cold forms of lead generation. The cold forms of lead generation that we were doing was mailers, was door knocking, all of that kind of stuff. So it changed a little bit because you can add people to your database, continue nurturing them, and we're not as close as we used to be. So it changed a little bit. So what you want to look at is based on the leads that you have in your top 5 is where's 80% of your business coming from? Are you in control of it? Are you not in control of it? Is it paid? Is it generated? Do you have the ability to impact the output or change the conversion ratio of it? And do you have a systematic plan in place to communicate, convert, nurture, and add value to those people? So we're going to look at one other piece here. So if we're looking at inside of the MREA, we know that there's the triangle with our 3 L's. Does anybody know what goes at the bottom of the triangle? What's the first L in the MREA?
Leads.
Leads. Thank you for the person who yelled. I love it. Leads. So leads is first, because when you are a brand new agent, what does everybody need? Leads. And I don't care how big you are, how small you are, how new you are, how long you've been in the business. It's all about leads. You have no business without leads. It is the foundation of a business. You have to learn how to generate leads in order to have the business. So the next L in real estate, what's the next L?
Listings.
Listings. Somebody knows their MREA, and I love it. Listings is next, because when you typically start as a new agent and you generate leads, you're typically 60-40, 70-30 buyer based for people who are not in control and treating their business like a business. So the next goal is to become more listing space. The more listing space we are, the more time we have. Because with buyers, we have to show them around and take them from property to property to property and write offers and get some and not get some. And so that takes time. And what we want to do is we want to leverage the time that we have. So the more listings we have, the more capacity we have. Getting in control of our leads so that we're listing based is then how we move to the next place. What's the last one? Whoever it is who's yelling us out, take us away.
Leverage.
Leverage. I love it. Okay, so leverage is the last one. If you hire before you're in control of your leads, then that means that your leads can fluctuate, and that is part of your value proposition of having a team. So to have proper leverage, you need to be in control of your leads. Let's say you're making your first hire, because that's usually the scariest one, because you're looking at a salary and you know that you're paying that person. So if we take ourselves back to that place to where we're making our very first hire, if you are in control of your leads, if you're listings based and you have the capacity to take on more, you have a lot more confidence in hiring that leverage. It's a constant circle. Once you hire that first hire, guess what? You start right back over at the leads to where you get back into lead generation. you add more listings, and then you need more leverage. So now you go and hire your second form of leverage, which then brings you back to leads. It's a never ending cycle. So let's look at our 3 buckets of the types of lead generation. You have technology, belly to belly, and partnerships or vendors. So technology, if you are 100% technology based for your lead generation, then it is typically lower conversion ratio. Let's go back to this page right here. Remember, Facebook is more technology oriented. Zillow and Realtor.com is online lead sources. Those are the 2 lower converting lead generation sources. It's not that we try to get rid of them. We're just trying to get them out of our top 2 sources of lead generation. If you are 100% technology based, you have the lower conversion and technology is in control. So if you, anytime I'm talking with a really heavy paid leads ad agent, they are always holding their phone and fidgeting with their phone. It's because they know the moment they get the call, they're at the beck and call of the phone and they have to answer it or they miss the lead and it still counts as one of their leads. So you're crazy busy. If you're only belly to belly, this can work in the long term. However, this is how I was as an agent. I did not use technology to the best of its ability until I hired somebody to do it. And I struggled because I was great at generating the lead, but then continuing the follow-up because again, you only have 24 hours in the day. So this is the in-person. Technology is a benefit because it can be used as a second set of eyes, a second brain, a second set of hands for you if you use it successfully. Belly to belly is great for over time with your commitment, and you have to have both of them. It's not one or the other. Technology oriented only, then it is cold, and you have to have people are hiring you because they believe that you're a person. There's a reason why AI cannot replace the realtor. Belly to belly is great, and you will have 24 hours in a day. So your conversion ratio will decrease because of it. If you're not using technology in your belly to belly business, you're typically missing business where somebody says, oh, I thought you were too busy. Oh, I forgot to reach out to you. Oh, I just asked my friend. I ran into them at an open house, or I ran into them at a event and I hired them. It all happened so fast. I'm sure all of us have experienced that. And you think, oh my gosh, what have I done? I forgot. I haven't called my people. So using the both of them is so important to where belly to belly is generating the lead. Belly to belly is why we have 4 calls a year to our database. Of course, in a TCPA friendly and compliant way, we have to add that part. The belly to belly is the client events. That's what increases the conversion ratio. The technology is using things like, and I'm going to use command as an example because it's the common language that we get to use. You get to see who's been active on their neighborhood searches. You get to see who is interacting with you. And soon it's going to have the AI of who's the person that you should call because it's doing AI somehow on how likely are they to sell based on your interactions. So you use the both of them to increase your conversion ratios. If your database repeat and referral is not in your top 2, that's how you move it into the top 2, is by using the both of them. And the last one is partnering with vendors or organizational partnerships. They help you with your reputation. They're like walking references for you. So having those 3 different buckets can help you in changing the type of leads that you are receiving. So I want to talk about follow-up now. Follow-up is people inside of your database that you need to show value to. So I want to tell you a little story as an example. So my mom has a house in Montana that she uses as a short-term rental. And when she purchased the house, she used Keller Williams agent. And that was about, I'd probably say 6 or 7 years ago. And that agent continually follows up with her. She does her 4 calls a year. She invites her to events. And my mom doesn't live in Montana, so she doesn't go to the events, but she does help her whenever she calls. So she will call and reach out. And there was a mold issue with the house where she had to redo an entire side of the house. And this agent couldn't help with anything because she had to go back to the builder, but she did follow up and just check in and say, how's it going? Do you need any referrals, or do you need any contractors? I can send you names of anybody. It's now time for my mom to sell that house. She wants to sell it. And she said, well, there's a realtor in town that is also an appraiser, and he's a friend, and he's asking if he can list the house. But I feel obligated to work with Lisa, the agent who helped her purchase the house, because she has kept in relationship with me. I feel obligated that I want to work with her. It would make me feel bad if I didn't work with her because she's helped me so much along the way. That follow-up is so important because that other person was right there in the moment, and my mom almost went with them, but the reciprocity inside of her made her want to list with Lisa. The follow-up is so important because it builds reciprocity where people want to give referrals, they want to reach back out to you, they want to refer you. So if all items are the same between realtors, or between businesses, then the cheapest one becomes the most value. So we have to communicate our value proposition to people at any given point. In the lead generation phase, we're communicating how we can help them and how we stand out. I was looking up some agents this morning for something, and I found on one of the bios what makes, insert the person's name here, different. And I loved that section. What makes them different? And they had a list of what made them different. Granted, it was that they had been in the business for 10 years. They had lived in the city for their entire life. It wasn't groundbreaking things. They were just communicating it. And as I read it, I thought this person is different. So how are you communicating that on the front end? On the follow-up side, how you're communicating your value is who you have partnerships with. This is how you build value for yourself, for people to say it was the greatest experience ever, because during the transaction, in people's brain, they see it differently than after the transaction. After the transaction is typically where the referrals come from. Yes, it was great. No, it wasn't great. People always remember their lasting experience is the last thing that they did experience. So if your lasting experience was great job on the closing, here's the keys, I hope it goes well, and you have every intention of following up, and you don't, their lasting experience is you handing them the keys and giving them a hug. There's nothing different from that. Set yourself apart with the follow-up. So Abe Sharif has a great quote that he says that your personality is not a benefit or a value proposition. It just makes it easier to connect. Your will and what they can expect from working with you is your value proposition. So in each one of these forms, the lead generation, the transaction, and follow-up, do they know what they can expect from working with you? So normally we do an exercise where we talk about the value proposition. Because we're doing this on Zoom, I want to do it just a little bit differently. I want you to take about 2 minutes to write out the answer of, if I said, why should I hire you? Why are you different than the last realtor that walked in the door? I just want you to jot down what is your answer to that. So, and then I'm going to give you instructions after that. So take 2 minutes to do that. Okay, so we're gonna come back together and I won't, we're gonna do a second step to this, but I want to give you this example. So if we think about water is one of the most used commodities in the world. And if you get water out of the refrigerator, back at the back of the room there, it's about a few cents per cup. So let's say we're filling up this cup, then it's a few cents. If you take that exact same water, you put it on a sealable lid and you put it in a grocery store or any sort of a store, that few cents now goes into $2 for a water bottle. If you inject some bubbles into it, all of a sudden it's $3.50. If you put that exact same water bottle without the bubbles even inside of an airport or a stadium, it's all of a sudden anywhere from $5 to $10. If you take that exact same water bottle and you put it in a hotel room in the middle of Vegas, in the middle of a convention, it's all of a sudden $26. It is the exact same water. It's all in how it's packaged and where it is. So the value of the water changes depending on the packaging and the communication and the value it brings and the situation that it's in. You are a commodity and what you bring to the table. So when you look, so I want you to look back down at what you wrote out as your value proposition, why somebody should hire you. Now, it's not your full value proposition, but it's your quick answer of why should someone hire you? It's like your elevator speech. I want you to look down on it, at it, and cross out what is everybody else behind you that's coming in and interviewing for the same listing. What are they also saying? So if you put that you communicate well, you have great customer service, you're taking professional photography, you have the best marketing plan in the world, we're going to assume every agent is walking in and saying the same thing. So I want you to cross that out real quick. Once you've done that, I want you to see, what are you left with? What is the value proposition that you are left with that you communicate to people? So let's go through some ideas. Your value proposition can be market statistics. You have to talk about the awards that you have or that your brokerage has, because your office is the top office in your area. So if somebody is looking for the place, and I think that you guys do needs and wants in your office also. So if they're looking for the place that has the most amount of pocket listings anywhere, your office is the place that they have the highest likelihood chance. Use it to your advantage and communicate it. What are the market statistics? Are you an economist of choice? Do you spend 5 hours a week, or do you spend 20 hours a month or 5 hours a month studying statistics? Do you study them every morning? Do you follow rates? Do you follow trends? You can be an economist of choice. Do you have reputable vendors that are actually going to show up on the day they say they're going to show up? People that show up on time and are honest and trustworthy. Do you have agreements? You can create, the last time I was at your market center, I taught client experience. And one of the things that we talked about was having vendor agreements with the people that you have partnerships with. So if you are going to refer them, the expectations you have is they're not going to upsell your clients. They're going to take care of them. They're going to charge them a reasonable amount, and that they're going to show up when they say they're going to show up, or they're going to communicate. So do you have reliable vendors? Man, people are looking for that. Do you have a whole book of reliable vendors? Do you have a community or something that people can plug into? They're looking for connections. Do you have events every single year? Do you have community impact in a way that you give back into the community? Do you have wealth building that you teach, or a newsletter that you send out that teaches some wealth building strategies or investment opportunities? Do you have something that helps them with whatever their real estate related plans are for the year? You must communicate this to convert the lead generation side, and don't assume that your people in your database know it. You have to continually communicate it over and over again. So I want to come back to this first graph that we did right here. The lead generation side, we're looking for your top two for you to be in control of and to be able to make them profitable, and something that the more you put in, the more you can get out of it. Your systems are, how are you systematically lead generating? If you're just calling your database, but you're only calling them maybe once a year, maybe once every 6 months, and it's not systematic, you need a system in place. How often can they expect to hear from you? What are your lead generation tactics? Your transaction is during the transaction period, and the follow-up, what lasting experience are you giving them? So I kind of want to close on this topic. It's, there's a great quote. This came from Gary Keller. It's, do you have the discipline to spend enough time to find out exactly what needs to be done in your business, to spend the time and the focus to figure it out, and to have the resolve to do it every single day? We must have the resolve to do it every single day. So the discipline to figure out enough time. Do you have the discipline to spend enough time to figure out exactly what needs to be done? So do you know, is this a 3 and this is 7 and this is 6? So do you know, did you spend the time to figure out that this is the place that needs some work for you to be in control of your leads? Find out what needs to be done. So what is the system? Now, if you're not systems oriented, I don't care if you just write out as it comes to you on the back of an envelope, what are the things that you need to have in place? And then everything is figure outable. If you're procrastinating on something, procrastination is only one of two things. It's either you don't know how to do something, or you don't want to. If you don't know how to, and you perceive that it's going to take too much time to figure it out, then you procrastinate on it, or you don't want to and you don't feel like it. And so that's another form of procrastination. And that just takes mind over matter, which is easier said than done. And while I realize that, it's also, you can set timers for yourself. If you can identify what's causing you to procrastinate on something, then you have the ability to identify it to move forward. So then you have to spend the time and focus to do it, and have the resolve to do it every single day. Because remember that on the other side of boredom is where success lives. Doing the same thing consistently takes so much discipline. So we've all come back to that lead generation, that transaction, and follow up. And I just want to close with that. So do you guys have any questions or anything that you want to go over? Okay, y'all are a quiet group. There's one thing that I'd like to ask for an ask on. Let's see if I can. I'd like to ask, I appreciate y'all's time a lot. I hope this was really helpful for you to identify where you can be in control of your leads. If you could, I'm also on the path for master faculty for us to be able to teach more classes. So if you wouldn't mind scanning this QR code, I think it's up on your screen, and filling out one of the evaluations, that would be great. It should take about 1 to 2 minutes, and it takes you to kwueval.com if you don't want to do the QR code. Our region is the Ohio Valley region. You select that this was a virtual class. And the technical name of this class is MREA Systemizing Lead Gen. So it's a drop down for that. And then my name is the 7th option down whenever it goes to the 2nd page. So if you click the 2nd page and ask for who the instructor is, I'm the 7th option down. It's Anna McKissack. So thank you guys for your time today. Was this valuable?
Yes.
Good, good. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated with lead generation. There's 5,000 different ways to do lead generation. but you have to decide where is your buckets full and where is your buckets empty. If you don't know where to start, look at your past 12 months of your transactions and identify where all your transactions came from. And then you can categorize them from there. You can also decide, I like it or I don't like it. I want to change it or I want to keep it the same. I just want to do more of it. So if you guys need anything, I'm always happy to help. Thank you for your time today. And I think we ended on time. So this is great. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Absolutely. Bye,
Appreciate
everybody.
See ya.